Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to work on this KX again, this 250. One of the last videos we went through the carburetor and got it running decent, got the bog out of it. But then we found that the clutch was slipping, so we're going to go through the clutch today. I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to look at the components, what to look for, what to inspect on the components, what to replace if it's wore out, and how to do it without draining the oil out of the bike. Bonus. Follow along. Alright, so I got the spare clutch here on the bench. I'm gonna go through it. I'm gonna show you what to look for in this before we get over onto the bike and pull the clutch out of it. So identifying your components. Once you get this assembly off of the bike, you're gonna pull it apart. You got your pressure plates, your friction plates, your housing, and your this part here. This is your spring plate. So all your springs will be in there. So I'll show you how to take this apart once we pull the one off the bike. But for now, we're just identifying some parts. So your spring plate, you want to look for wear and tear on this back side where these friction plates would line up. These are your friction plates. You're going to look for the integrity of the material. You're going to measure the thickness. So for this particular model, we're showing 116 thou thickness. Manual on this bike, which I have right here, calls for between 110 and 120 thou. So that friction plate's good. These are your steel plates. On these here, you want to look for wear and tear, and then you also want to look for warpage because these get hot, they will warp. Manual again for warpage. If you put it on a piece of glass or something, you'll be able to check. The other thing you want to look at on these friction discs is these ears here. So these ears, they ride on the clutch housing. And this one here, you can see, I don't know how well you can see it, but it has significant wear on it. So you can feel a burr there. You want to make sure that rides nice and smooth on here, because if it doesn't ride smooth on this clutch hub, you'll get grabbing and the clutch isn't going to function the way that it needs to function. So you're going to go through all of those. You're going to remove them all. When you pull this things apart, you always want to kind of put it back together the way it came apart. This is your clutch hub. So this is what your steel plates are going to engage in here. So you want to look and make sure that that's nice and smooth. This one here is very visibly wore. I would replace this. This is just a garbage clutch I had laying around. The other thing that I notice on this hub is that a couple of the spring retainers, so the springs will bolt over these little stands, and a couple of them are missing and machined off for whatever reason. And then same with the housing. You're going to look at the friction plates resist against this housing here like that. That keeps them from rotating around. So you can see on this housing, let me see, that is wore out like crazy. So this clutch here is just for demonstration purposes. It is actually all pretty well garbage. Even the friction plates, I don't think I would reuse. Given the wear on these ears, I would just replace them. So that's your basic components of a clutch. And then you would have springs, which I have here somewhere. These are your clutch springs that would go in there, bolt to that. And then the way that this works is you have a shift or a clutch rod that goes all the way through the transmission over to the clutch linkage, which works off of an actuator, shifts that bar across and releases the pressure. So now clutch is engaged, the bike is spinning, but the clutch plates aren't squeezing together, creating friction, allowing the power from the motor to get to the rear wheel. When you let off, those springs push everything back together, squeezes. The friction plates all squeeze together. And then that's what allows the power from the motor to get to the rear wheel. So I'll show you the way we're going to work on this bike here. We're going to do it without pulling the oil. So you just basically you lay the bike over, all the oil will flow out of that clutch housing, and then you can pop that clutch off. So we'll do that next. As you can see, all the oil is drained out. Now we're going to undo, these are the spring retainer bolts. Underneath those are all the clutch springs. We'll pop those out. Then this clutch plate will come off, and then we can remove these friction discs. Then in behind all that, I'll show you what's in there. Are you helping, Callie? Spring retainer bolt. It's got a little step washer on it. Tuck those all off to the side. Clutch plate to lift off. There's our clutch plate. Bearing. There are washers in here, so there's a little shim in there. And then we can pull our stack out, or clutch pack, whatever you want to call it. Might need to get a little pick to get in there. I like to keep them oriented the way they come out. Okay, so what we're looking at in here, we can pop that nut off with an impact gun, and then we can pull the whole clutch assembly apart. But we're looking at the hub, we're looking at these teeth, which this looks brand new. But what doesn't look great is the clutch housing here. Right here, you can see where the friction discs were kind of wearing on that. So we'll leave that for a minute. We'll go and we'll inspect and measure all the friction discs and see if there's excessive wear or warpage on those first. And then we'll come back to address this. Just using that piece of mirror to just do a quick indicating, checking it in two directions to see for obvious warpage. I mean 20-30 thou, you're gonna see it right away. Inch and 3/16. Probably not the right socket, but it fits pretty good. This here is the shift cap thing that goes on the end of the shift rod. Here's your shift rod. Comes through the shaft. In behind that nut, got a washer. 2 washers, probably wrong washers. It's their inner hub. So this here washer should actually be going right there, and then that. So got some assembly. Assembled a little bit fucked up. And just be careful pulling this out because you got your little needle bearings in there. Your needle bearing, the inner journal, and then there's a washer there at the bottom as well. I'll take this all over to the bench and we'll go through it all. Alright, so we got our full clutch over here on the bench, and we're going to go through all the measurements. I've already measured the plates, I've already checked the steels for warpage. That all looks pretty good. But what I'm finding is that these ears, the measurement for this 91 KX is 535 to 543 thou. Width. Measured from here to here. These here are measuring out between 520 and 525 thou, so way about 10 thou under the limit. So a combination of those ears being wore out and the clutch hub, see all that chatter in there, that doesn't help the situation. We also found the washer that splits the inner hub, whatever you want to call that fucking thing, from the housing was in the wrong spot, which would cause the inner hub to actually drag on the housing. But this was slipping. It wasn't grabbing too hard. So I don't know that that was the cause of our problem. So we're going to go through, I'm going to measure the spring height, compare it to the manual. I'm going to check the friction disc clearance to the outer housing and see if I can find anything else that would cause this thing to slip. All right, so the only thing that I found really is these ears are 10 thou on the loose end, too tight, and that washer in the wrong spot. The hub does have some wear, but I don't think it's enough to justify replacing the outer housing. This inner clutch hub looks really good. Like, it's almost got no hours on it whatsoever. So we're gonna put this back together, reset up the clutch, and I'm gonna order a new friction plate set to put in here. New plates, new steels, and hopefully that solves our problem. So I'm gonna put all this back in, reverse the process, torque spec on this, and I'm sure they have a tool for it, which I don't, which is the main clutch nut, is 172 foot-pounds, 100 Newton meters if you speak in metric. So let's put this back in. Okay, so we pulled that clutch part. We found that the clutch plate ears were quite worn. I'm actually finding I'm trying to adjust out the clutch cable, and I'm pretty well at maximum adjustment on this, which tells me that my clutch cable is stretched a mile. So we found the washer in the wrong spot and the ears wore out. Everything else looked good. Everything else measured out to spec. I put it back together just for the sake of putting it back together, because who knows when I'm going to get a chance to order parts and replace the clutch plates. So I am going to replace the clutch plates and the steel plates. I am going to replace the clutch cable on this thing. But like I said, I don't know when I'm going to get to it. So back together it went for the video purposes. So didn't need to drain oil, just laid the bike on its side. And yeah, hopefully you found this interesting and learned something, or learned what not to do. And I'm sure you got all kinds of comments of things that I did wrong. Anyway, till the next video. Peace.